Hello, you're watching the business headlines on HW News with me, Ali Azhar. Presently, we're at a crucial time as two important states have just finished voting, these obviously being Maharashtra and Haryana. So it's natural that prior to the election, which was yesterday, there would be a war of words between the two main contestants, that is the BJP and Congress. And the hot topic of discussion these days is none other than the ailing economy. So, a few days ago, we had the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman coming out and saying that public sector banks had their worst phase under the combination of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan. In response, Mr. Manmohan Singh made a very pertinent point when he remarked that now this government has been in power for more than 5 years and they should have learned from our mistakes and provided a credible solution for the economy. He further went on to say that the BJP-led government at the centre and states are obsessed with fixing the blame on opponents rather than adopting people-oriented policies. Also, Mr. Singh at a meeting of representatives in Mumbai stated that Maharashtra used to be the number one destination for investment. However, now it was infamous for being the state with the highest number of farmer suicides. But be that as it may, yesterday's exit polls, as well as the poll of polls, all clearly showed a landslide victory for the BJP and its allies in both states and clearly exposed cracks in the armory of Congress-led allies. And it's because of the fact that the Congress is widely believed to be a headless snake without competent leadership and, more importantly, without a common rhetoric during election season, in the sense that its leaders have not decided on a common strategy to go out and focus on, let's say, the state of the economy, or why are only national issues forming part of the BJP's state election campaign, or anything of that sort. All Congress leaders have something different to say, so their approach seems very fragmented. So, in conclusion, there is no specific narrative on the economy from the Congress's side, and perhaps after doing a credible, in-depth diagnosis of how exactly India got into this mess, should the Congress come out all guns blazing. But who is going to come out with this white paper on the current state of the economy and throw it on the Congress's lap? I'll tell you who. The second person Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman blamed for the public sector banking crisis. None other than, and if I may add, who better than, Raghuram Rajan. Mr. Rajan, on 9th October, in an address at Brown University in the US, made a long presentation detailing out precisely how the Indian economy got into the current slump and its factors, and then went on to educate us on where do we go from here. Keeping in tune with that, I would also like to present his findings in 2 episodes, this being the first. Before he begins his diagnosis, Mr. Rajan points out that there are deep signs of malice in the Indian economy and that growth is slowing significantly, fiscal space is narrowing sharply, and debt and distress are rising. Getting into specifics, he says that while obviously we know that growth in the NDA regime has been slowing, an even more worrying factor is that investment, which is considered to be the lifeblood of the economy, as a percentage of growth has been drastically falling. Exports have also shrunk as a percentage of GDP. Then, what he depicts via a chart is that how off-balance sheet borrowing by the Modi government has skyrocketed. This means that the government has been making public sector enterprises such as the Food Corporation of India or the NHAI borrow money and spend on its behalf. And then these amounts are not included in the centre's fiscal deficit calculation, thereby distorting the entire picture. Then, private debt and distress are on the rise, and continuing and contributing to this is a combination of a sharp decrease in household savings and a sharp increase in individual debt. Even a statistic such as credit upgrades and downgrades are at a 6-year low. He also stated that the Modi 1 government came into power with promises such as jobs, greater transparency, and some traditional BJP elements like Mandir. Unfortunately, Mr. Rajan goes on to say mixed performances and outcomes all but diminish these promises. He went on to list the 2 most obvious examples of demonetization, which he says was misguided in concept and initiated without adequate preparation, and GST, on which his views are that while it was a sound concept, it was like demonetization initiated without adequate preparation, and constant fiddling around with the rates created uncertainty. Another problem which he alluded to was when gross NPAs began to decline as a percentage of gross advances shot up suddenly in the year 2014-15, which was obviously the year in which the government first came into power. But honestly, in our opinion, this could have well been the momentum shown by the Modi government to clean up the banking system as soon as he came back into power. Our ex-RBI governor then moved on to commenting on the most important sectors of the economy, what reforms the government has implemented, whether they have been successful or not, and what improvements they can make. So, agriculture sector, where he said the productivity has not been up to the mark. Then, banking and finance sector, where he states that the limited efforts made are undercut by the finance ministry from the outset, and that public sector bank boards have little option but to listen to politicians, such as when they are directed to indulge in loan melas. Another point which we found interesting is when Mr. Rajan said there is a need to distinguish between a genuine loss and a fraud, and often these days investigative authorities mix up the two, which discourages risk-taking among entrepreneurs for fear of being labelled as a fraudster. In addition, he also touched upon the problems in the power sector and suggested that we should make a greater effort to move towards the renewable power sector. On the trade and investment front, his observations were that India should aim to be more business-friendly, and instead of focusing on the World Bank ease of doing business indicators, we should focus on specifics that make India a difficult place to do business. Also, arbitrary changes in regulations, such as those in the case of Amazon and Walmart, make the business community more skeptical. Another point was that tax authorities have very few checks on their power and can arbitrarily levy demands that are very hard to reverse. Mr. Rajan also pointed out to the fact that India has not been able to capitalize on China's constantly declining share in exports of textiles world over. And instead, nations such as Bangladesh and Vietnam have taken advantage of this opportunity at our expense. He finally conceded that where the Modi One government has achieved its best outcome is through populist programs such as opening of bank accounts, building of toilets, providing cooking gas, Ayushman Bharat healthcare initiatives, etc. So, in concluding this chapter, he deciphers what exactly caused the slowdown, to which he says that a part of it was due to the slow global growth and the NBFC crisis. However, he claims a better explanation would be a combination of low job growth, low productivity growth, which impedes household incomes, which is further linked to slow investment, and a slow pace of tackling legacy problems such as stalled projects and over-indebted firms and banks, which further are compounded by poor acts of commission such as demonetization and GST, as well as acts of omission such as limited reforms in the areas of land, labor, logistics, power, finances, etc. All these point to one thing and one thing only: incompetence on the part of the NDA government when it comes to their economic policies, which are beginning to reveal themselves in the form of the crisis we face today. Thank you for watching HW News. This is me signing off. Have a great day.
HW न्यूज़ पर आप मुझे लगातार देखते आ रहे हैं द विनोद दुआ शो में। अब आप मुझे एंड्रॉयड और आईफोन पर भी देख सकते हैं HW न्यूज़ का फ्री ऐप डाउनलोड करके। तो देर मत कीजिए, डाउनलोड कीजिए HW न्यूज़ का फ्री ऐप और मुझसे जुड़े रहिए।
Now be the first to know about the latest updates on our new news app. Go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.